He didn't look like someone who would try to erase a person. That's what I kept thinking, sitting across from him at the coffee shop on Robson Street. The one with the exposed brick and the pour-overs that cost $9. He was 51. Silver at his temples, a blazer that probably cost more than my rent. He had the kind of face that belonged on a foundation donor wall at a hospital. Warm eyes. A firm handshake. He introduced himself as my boyfriend's father, and he said he just wanted to talk. I should have known right then. I was 28. I had been with his son for 14 months. I had just found out 6 days earlier that I was 11 weeks pregnant. He slid a folded piece of paper across the table before his coffee even arrived. I opened it. It was a number, not spelled out in a sentence, not accompanied by any explanation, just a number, typed in the center of an otherwise blank page. $450,000. I folded it back up. I looked at him. He smiled like he'd just offered me a very reasonable solution to a very manageable problem. "I think you understand what I'm asking," he said. I did. I just didn't answer him right away. I picked at my tea and I drank it, and I thought about the drive home. His son, I'll call him my ex because that's what he became, was 33. We had met at a mutual friend's housewarming in East Van. He was funny. He read actual books. He called his mother on Sundays. I thought those were signs of something. I thought I was a decent judge of character. We weren't careless. That matters to me to say. We weren't reckless teenagers. I was a grown woman in a committed relationship, and we talked about the future in the careful, hedging way that people in their late 20s do. Not if, but eventually. Not never, but not yet. When I found out I was pregnant, I sat with it for 4 days before I told him. He didn't yell. He didn't leave. He sat very still on my couch, and he said he needed time to think. 3 days later, his father called me to set up the coffee. I don't know exactly what was said in those 3 days. I never will. But I know that when I finally reached my ex after that meeting, his voice had changed. He sounded like someone reading from a script. He said he wasn't ready. He said it wouldn't be fair to a child. He said he thought we should think about options. I told him I had already thought about them. He stopped calling after that. The number on that piece of paper was not small. I want to be honest about that, because I think pretending it didn't affect me would be a lie, and this whole thing has cost me too much for me to start lying now. $450,000 is life-changing money for someone like me. I was working as a dental hygienist in Burnaby. I had a decent salary, a small savings account, a used Civic that needed new tires. I was not struggling, but I was also not someone who had ever seen a number that large with my name attached to it. I held the paper in my car for a long time after he left. Then I drove to my sister's apartment in New Westminster, and I sat at her kitchen table, and I told her everything. She made me decaf. She didn't say much for a while. Then she said, "What do you actually want?" And I knew. I had known since the moment I saw the ultrasound. I just needed someone to ask me directly. I wanted my baby. I wanted to keep my baby, and I wanted my baby's father to be held accountable in the way that the law, not his father's checkbook, was designed to make him be. I had never hired a lawyer before. I didn't know how to find one. I did what most people do. I spent 2 evenings going through reviews online, called 3 different family law firms in the Lower Mainland, and eventually found a lawyer named Beverly who had 17 years of experience in BC family law and who spoke to me for 20 minutes on the phone before I'd even confirmed I could afford her retainer. In that first call, she asked me a question I wasn't prepared for. "Do you have anything in writing from the father or his family? Texts, emails, anything?" I thought about it. The father stopped responding, but his father met me in person. "Did you record it?" I hadn't. But I had the piece of paper. I'd kept it in my glove compartment like evidence I didn't know I'd need. Beverly said that was a start. My ex's family was from money. Old money, the kind that doesn't advertise itself. His father had built a commercial real estate portfolio in the Lower Mainland over 30 years. Not a household name, not someone you'd see in the news, but the kind of man whose calls got returned quickly and whose accountants worked year-round. When Beverly started making inquiries, she came back to me with a number I hadn't known. My ex's disclosed income was significant, more significant than he had ever let on during our 14 months together. In British Columbia, child support is calculated under the federal child support guidelines. It's not negotiable. It's not based on what the paying parent feels is fair. It's based on income, and the formula doesn't care about family reputation or downtown real estate. Beverly explained this to me carefully. She also explained something else. The offer I had received, the $450,000, could be considered relevant context. Not proof of wrongdoing necessarily, but context, a pattern of behavior. They wanted to make this disappear before it became a legal matter, she said. It's already a legal matter. I filed for child support and for a declaration of parentage in BC Supreme Court. I was 4 months pregnant when the process server delivered the documents to my ex's office on West Georgia Street. I found out later that he had been in a meeting, that the assistant had to interrupt him. I didn't feel sorry about that. What happened next was slower than I expected and faster than I feared. My ex retained his own counsel, a firm in Vancouver that specialized in high net worth family law. They were good. They filed motions. They questioned the timeline. They requested documentation I hadn't anticipated having to produce. There were weeks when Beverly would call me with an update that felt like 3 steps backward, and I would hang up and sit in my car in the parking lot of the dental office and breathe. I was tired in a way I had never been tired before. Pregnancy tired. Legal battle tired. The specific exhaustion of being the only person fighting for something that 2 people made. But I kept going, because I had Beverly, and because I had my sister, and because every time I thought about stopping, I thought about the piece of paper in my glove compartment. The parentage hearing came first. In BC, prenatal DNA testing is not used to establish parentage through the courts, not because it's impossible scientifically, but because the legal framework under the Family Law Act typically deals with parentage after birth. Beverly had prepared me for this. We documented everything we had, the length of the relationship, photographs, messages from before he went silent, the timeline of the pregnancy. My ex's legal team argued that paternity had not been established, that the timeline was ambiguous, that I had not demonstrated sufficient evidence of an exclusive relationship. I sat in that courtroom, or rather, the hearing room, because these proceedings are often more quiet than people expect, more fluorescent lit and paperwork heavy than dramatic, and I listened to a lawyer describe my 14 months with someone as ambiguous. And I thought, this is exactly what his father was trying to prevent me from doing. The judge, a woman in her late 50s with reading glasses on a chain, reviewed everything Beverly had submitted. She asked me 3 questions directly. I answered them honestly. The declaration of parentage was granted. My daughter was born in September. I labored for 11 hours, and she arrived at 6:42 in the morning, 7 pounds 4 ounces, with a look on her face like she was already annoyed about something. My sister was there. My mother drove up from Kelowna the night before and slept on my couch and cried in the hallway when she heard the first cry. My ex was not there. He had been informed of the due date. He did not reach out. I held my daughter and I thought, I am so glad I didn't take the money. Not because $450,000 isn't real. It is. But because the moment I took it, I would have agreed, in the most legally binding way possible, that she was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be supported. And I was not willing to put my name on that. The child support hearing came when my daughter was 4 months old. I showed up with Beverly. My ex showed up with 2 lawyers. His team's argument centered on income averaging. They wanted the court to consider a lower income figure than what Beverly had presented. This is not uncommon in cases involving income that doesn't arrive in a simple T4. They had accountants. They had projections. Beverly had also prepared for this. She had retained a financial expert who specialized in income determination for high net worth individuals under the federal child support guidelines. That expert had gone through 3 years of tax filings, corporate distributions, and shareholder information. The number they arrived at was not the number my ex's team had proposed. Under the guidelines, the monthly child support figure was set at an amount that would change my daughter's life materially. It was not punitive, it was mathematical. It was what the law said a child is entitled to when their parent earns what her father earns. My ex's lead lawyer kept his face very professional throughout. His father, who had come to observe, did not. I watched him from across the room when the figure was read. His expression was the one I had been waiting 14 months to see. He had offered me $450,000 to make this go away. The annual support figure, calculated over the years until my daughter turns 19, was considerably more than that. I want to say something about what people get wrong about situations like mine. They assume it's about the money, that the woman who goes to court is chasing something, revenge or wealth or some abstract principle, and I understand why. The optics are easy to flatten, but here is what I actually thought about every single day through that process. My daughter deserved to have her existence acknowledged, not by a check written in a coffee shop, not by a settlement designed to be quiet and quick and invisible, by a court order with her name on it, or rather, his obligations to her. Something that said she is real, and he is her father, and that has consequences. Child support in Canada is not a punishment. It is a recognition that both parents are responsible for the cost of raising a child, regardless of whether they wanted to be parents at the time. That's not an opinion. That's the law. And the law exists because children do not get to choose whether they're wanted. My daughter did not choose to be born to a man who tried to make her disappear before she was born. She also didn't choose to be born to someone who decided she was worth fighting for. She was just born, and the world she arrived into, the legal rights she has, the support she receives, that was decided by what I did in those 14 months. My ex made his first support payment without further legal action. His lawyer was professional about the transfer. No one called. No one reached out. Just a deposit notification from my bank on a Tuesday morning in February while I was feeding my daughter on the couch in my apartment in Burnaby. She was wearing a yellow sleeper. She had no idea. His father has not contacted me since the settlement was formalized. I don't expect he will. There is something nobody tells you about going through this. It does not feel like winning. Not in the moment. It feels like surviving, and then it feels like exhaling, and then very slowly it begins to feel like something more solid, like ground beneath your feet that wasn't there before. My sister says I'm different now. I don't know if that's the experience or just becoming a parent, or both at once. The way most things that change you don't arrive alone. What I know is this: I sat across from a powerful man in a coffee shop on Robson Street, and he put a number on a piece of paper and he expected me to take it and disappear. I kept the paper, I kept the baby, and I let the legal system do exactly what it was built to do. Beverly sent me a text the day the final order came through. It said, "Done. Well done." 2 words. I saved it. My daughter is 7 months old now. She has her father's eyes, which used to feel cruel and now just feels like information. She is loud and particular, and she has recently discovered that she can blow raspberries and considers this her greatest achievement. I go back to work next month. My mother is coming to stay for the first 2 weeks. My sister has already claimed Sundays. I don't talk about the legal side of things much in my daily life. Most people don't know. The ones who do tend to say something like, "I don't know how you did it, and I don't really know how to answer that," because the honest answer is that I didn't know I could until I had to. I think that's true for a lot of things that matter. The piece of paper is still in my glove compartment. I should probably throw it away. I keep meaning to. Maybe I'm waiting until she's old enough that it won't mean anything to me anymore. Or maybe I'm keeping it because it reminds me of exactly what I chose not to do, and why everything that came after was worth the cost. She is worth the cost. That's the only thing I was ever certain of. From the very first Tuesday morning in a parking lot in Burnaby, when I sat alone and thought about what kind of person I wanted her mother to be. I decided then. And I would decide the same way again, every single time. I've thought a lot about what made me say no to that piece of paper. Not the version of the story where I'm brave and certain, because that's not how it actually felt. The honest version is that I sat in my car in a parking lot in Burnaby for a long time, and I was scared, and the number was real, and being a single mother in Vancouver is not an easy thing to be financially. I knew that. I knew it in my bones. But I also knew something that I couldn't quite articulate at the time. and that I've only really found words for since. What you accept in the hardest moment becomes the shape of everything that follows. If I had taken that money and signed whatever agreement they put in front of me, I would have been living inside that decision for the rest of my life. My daughter would have grown up inside it too, even if she never knew the details. The choices we make when we're under pressure don't stay in the past, they travel forward. His father thought he was offering me a solution. What he was actually offering me was a ceiling, a fixed amount with invisible conditions attached, the main one being that I would agree, in writing, that my daughter's existence was a problem that had been resolved. I wasn't willing to put my name on that, not because I had a plan, and not because I was sure I'd win. I wasn't sure of anything except that she was real and that the law existed for exactly this reason. There's something people don't say enough about resilience. It's rarely dramatic in the moment. It doesn't feel like courage when you're doing it. It feels like getting up the next morning and making the next phone call and sitting across from Beverly in her office and answering her questions honestly, even the ones that were uncomfortable. It feels like going back to work and being professional and normal while also quietly building a legal case that would take months to resolve. It's not a single act. It's 100 small acts of refusing to stop. What I learned, and I mean really, learned, not in an abstract way, but in the kind of way that changes how you move through the world, is that integrity and intelligence are not separate things. Knowing your rights is not enough if you don't have the willingness to use them. And willingness is not enough if you don't do the work of actually understanding the system you're navigating. I had to develop both at the same time under pressure while also growing a human being. That combination of circumstances either breaks something in you or it builds something. I think it built something in me that wasn't fully there before. I'm not angry at my ex. That surprised me. I expected anger to be the dominant feeling once it was over. And it wasn't. What I feel is more like clarity. He made choices that had consequences he didn't anticipate. His father made choices that had consequences he didn't anticipate. The law is not interested in what people anticipated. It is interested in what is fair and what is documented and what a child is entitled to. That's not poetic. It's just true. And sometimes the truth being on your side is genuinely enough. My daughter is 7 months old and she has no idea any of this happened. One day, when she's old enough, I'll decide how much of it to tell her. What I know I'll tell her is this: the world has systems in it that exist to protect people who are willing to use them. Be the person who uses them. Do the work. Know your rights. And when someone puts a number on a piece of paper and slides it across a table expecting you to disappear, smile, fold it up, and go find a good lawyer.